The nebula Strider drifted through the silent abyss of the Veil expanse, its sleek hull gleaming against the backdrop of a dying red star. Captain Ryan Voss leaned over the command console, studying the holographic readouts flickering in blue light. The ship's quantum core pulsed faintly beneath the deck, a reminder of the raw power housed within this vessel, a power he wasn't entirely sure they should be wielding. "Captain?" said Leora Kyle, his chief engineer, her voice taut with concern. "I'm getting strange energy fluctuations in the region. Something's interfering with our scanners." Ryan frowned, brushing a gloved hand over his short beard in thought. "Is it natural or artificial?" Leora hesitated. "That's just it. The readings don't match anything on record. It could be a subspace distortion, or a cloaked ship." That was enough to make Ryan's pulse spike. He turned to Eric Tane, his weapons specialist, a rugged man with a sharp jaw and eyes that had seen too many battles. "Get the rail cannons primed and raise shields to 25%. Let's not look hostile, but I don't like surprises." Arik nodded, fingers gliding over the console. "Aye, Captain. Weapons hot. Shields ready." The bridge's dim glow pulsed with warning lights as the crew moved into high alert. Then the Veil expanse shattered. Out of nowhere, a Zenith Dominion warship, 3 times the size of the Nebula Strider, ripped through the void, its black-armored hull bristling with ion lances and plasma batteries. "Contacts!" shouted Vex, their hacker and systems expert. "Zenith Warcruiser Immortal Spear. They just dropped out of FTL right on top of us." Ryan's blood ran cold. "Helm, full burn. Get us out of their targeting range," he barked. The Nebula Strider lurched as its thrusters flared to life, but the Zenith ship was faster. A deep, resonant shockwave shook the hull as a tractor beam latched onto them, locking the ship in place. Alarms wailed. Systems flickered. "Incoming transmission," Vex announced grimly. The main viewscreen crackled, then resolved into the image of Admiral Kalis Dorn. His gaunt face was carved from stone, his silver eyes cold and unforgiving. Behind him, the command deck of his warcruiser gleamed with blood-red lights. "Captain Voss," Dorn said smoothly, his voice a blade wrapped in silk. "You're trespassing in Zenith-controlled space." "Bullshit," Ryan shot back. "The Veil expanse is neutral territory." Dorn smirked. "Not anymore." The comlink cut out. Then the boarding tubes launched. The Nebula Strider trembled under the force of the boarding clamps as Zenith shock troopers breached the hull. The air filled with the hiss of depressurization, followed by the heavy thuds of magnetic boots locking onto the ship's interior plating. "Brace for combat!" Ryan barked, unholstering his pulse rifle. Arik and the security team took cover behind control consoles, weapons aimed at the sealed airlock. Leora frantically worked the override panel, trying to lock the intruders out. "I need more time!" she shouted. A deafening explosion ripped through the corridor. The airlock doors blew inward, sending a shockwave of debris and smoke cascading through the bridge. The first Zenith enforcers stormed in, clad in black exo-armor, plasma rifles spitting blue death. Arik opened fire, taking one down with a precise headshot before ducking behind cover. Vex hacked into the ship's internal systems, trying to override the security locks to slow them down. "Too many of them!" Arik shouted. Ryan's mind raced. He had fought the Zenith before. Dorn wasn't here to take prisoners. If they stayed, they were dead. "Everyone to the escape pods," he ordered. "But the ship," Leora protested. "We'll take it back, but not from here." Reluctantly, the crew abandoned their stations and sprinted for the evacuation bay. Zenith troops pressed forward, unleashing suppressive fire. Vex took a hit to the shoulder, crying out in pain as Arik dragged him along. Ryan covered their retreat, laying down a barrage of plasma rounds. His rifle overheated just as a towering Zenith commando loomed in front of him, raising a shock blade. Before the blow could land, Ryan spun and slammed his boot into the enemy's knee, sending the commando staggering back. He seized the moment, drawing his sidearm and planting a shot between the trooper's eyes. The momentary victory meant little. A new alarm blared through the ship. The Zenith fleet was overriding the ship's AI. The Nebula Strider was being taken from them, locked down, converted into enemy property. Ryan cursed under his breath as he launched himself into the last escape pod. As the hatch sealed, he caught one last glimpse of the ship he had fought for, bled for, his home, vanishing into the void under Zenith control. Then the pod ejected, spiraling toward the icy wasteland of Chorus 5. The pod hit the atmosphere like a meteor, shaking violently as flames licked at its hull. Leora clung to her seat, desperately managing the descent controls, while Vex gritted his teeth against the pain of his wound. "Impact in 10 seconds!" Leora shouted. The pod screamed through the sky, then slammed into the frozen surface of Chorus 5, carving a long trench of ice and steel. For a long moment, there was only silence. Then, a sharp hiss as the emergency hatch blew open. Ryan staggered out into the frigid air, his breath turning to mist. Around him, jagged ice formations stretched for miles, illuminated by the eerie light of a dying red sun. Arik emerged next, pulse rifle in hand, scanning for hostiles. "Everyone alive?" Leora groaned as she crawled out, checking on Vex, who winced in pain but gave a weak thumbs up. "Barely." Ryan exhaled. They had survived. But now, stranded in an unknown environment with no ship, no resources, and an enemy fleet in orbit, survival was far from guaranteed. He turned his gaze toward the horizon and froze. Massive alien ruins jutted out of the ice like ancient monoliths. Strange energy pulses flickered within them. Leora followed his gaze. "What the hell is this place?" Ryan tightened his grip on his rifle. "Maybe the key to getting our ship back." The wind howled across the frozen plains of Chorus 5, cutting through the wreckage of their escape pod like a blade of ice. Ryan pulled his tattered jacket tighter around himself, his breath crystallizing in the frigid air. Behind him, Leora knelt next to Vex, pressing a heated compress against his wound. "This'll hold for now," she murmured, "but he needs proper treatment soon." Vex groaned. "So, no celebratory drinks yet?" Arik smirked, hoisting his rifle over his shoulder. "Maybe after we steal our damn ship back." Ryan ignored the banter, his eyes fixed on the ruins ahead. They loomed over the frozen wasteland, massive stone spires protruding from the ice like the broken ribs of some ancient giant. Strange blue glyphs pulsed faintly along the surface, forming patterns that shifted like they were alive. "I don't like this," Arik muttered. "Nobody just leaves structures like these behind unless there's a damn good reason." Leora adjusted her scanning device, eyes widening at the readings. "Captain, this isn't just an old ruin. It's active. There's power running through this place, and it's not human." Ryan exchanged a look with her, then moved forward. "Then let's find out who left the lights on." The entrance was a yawning archway, its edges etched with glowing blue lines that pulsed in sync with their heartbeats, as if the ruins could sense them. As they stepped inside, the temperature rose slightly, the ice giving way to smooth, obsidian floors. Leora's fingers flew over her scanner. "These readings are impossible. This place is generating energy, but the source is untraceable. It's like it's pulling from a dimension that doesn't exist." Vex, despite his injury, let out a low whistle. "Precursor tech. This is the real deal." Ryan frowned. "We need to focus." If there's something here that can help us take back the Nebula Strider, we find it and get out before Zenith tracks us." They ventured deeper. The corridor walls shifted and reformed subtly, as if responding to their presence. Symbols pulsed faster as they passed, almost like whispering voices. Then the path opened into a massive chamber. A floating monolith dominated the center, suspended in mid-air by forces beyond comprehension. Lines of blue circuitry crisscrossed its dark surface, forming incomprehensible geometric patterns that seemed to change when viewed from different angles. And then, it spoke. The voice wasn't a sound. It bypassed their ears entirely, resonating directly inside their skulls like an alien whisper. Leora gasped. It's interfacing with us. It's alive." Ryan clenched his jaw. "Ask it if it can help us take back our ship." Leora hesitated, then spoke carefully. "Can you understand us?" The glyphs on the monolith flared bright. The voice returned, clearer, ancient yet mechanized. The chamber shook as energy crackled through the air. A holographic interface materialized before them, displaying a star map, one centered on the Nebula Strider. Ryan stepped closer, heart pounding. "It knows where our ship is." Leora's fingers danced across the projection. More than that, it's offering a connection. "Captain, this thing, this machine, it's a neural interface system. If we can sync it with our tech, we could potentially hijack the Nebula Strider remotely." Vex chuckled weakly. "You're telling me we just stumbled into the universe's most advanced hacking tool?" Arik remained tense. "And we're just gonna trust an alien supercomputer that talks in our heads?" Ryan narrowed his eyes. "We don't have a choice. The Zenith took our ship. Now we take it back." He turned to Leora. "Can you activate it?" She hesitated, but then placed her hand against the monolith. The moment she did, the ruins lit up, and the real fight began. A wave of data flooded Leora's mind the instant she touched the monolith. Images, numbers, blueprints, an entire interface system far beyond human technology surged through her neurons. She gasped, her body locking in place as her pupils dilated, glowing faintly blue. "Leora!" Ryan grabbed her shoulders, shaking her lightly. She sucked in a sharp breath, blinking rapidly. I'm fine," she stammered, though her voice trembled. It's like I can see everything. The Zenith warship, their network, even—" She trailed off, staring at something none of them could see. "Even what?" Arik demanded, gripping his rifle. "The Nebula Strider," she whispered. Ryan's heart slammed against his ribs. "You can access it?" Leora closed her eyes for a moment, as if listening. "Not directly. The Zenith have it locked behind quantum firewalls, but—" Her eyes snapped open. "There's an outpost nearby, a relay station. If we override its security protocols, I can piggyback onto their mainframe and break into the ship's systems remotely." Vex smirked weakly. "So we're gonna hijack a hijack? I like it." Arik didn't look convinced. "Zenith doesn't leave relay stations unguarded. It'll be crawling with troops." "Then we do it quietly," Ryan said. "Stealth approach. Get in, get the codes, and get out before they even know we were there." Leora shook her head. "Won't work. The moment I interface with their systems, they'll know. We need a distraction. Something to split their forces while I break in." A slow grin crept across Arik's face. "Well, Captain, if you need something blown up, I'm your guy." Ryan clapped him on the back. "Then let's get to work." The Zenith relay station sat atop a frozen cliffside, built into the jagged rock like a fortress of steel and obsidian. Turrets lined the perimeter, and drone sentries floated along designated patrol paths, scanning for intruders. The four of them crouched behind an outcropping of ice, scouting the defenses. The outpost's central antenna pulsed with a faint blue light, an active link to the Zenith warship above. Arik let out a low whistle. Heavy security, sniper nests, auto turrets, and that landing pad? Yeah, they've got reinforcements on standby. Vex sighed. Getting in unnoticed isn't happening. Good, Ryan muttered. We're not here to be subtle. Arik grinned and set the charges. Boom! The first explosion tore through the eastern barricade, sending a fireball roaring into the frozen night. The Zenith guards barely had time to react before Arik fired again, detonating the fuel reserves near the supply depot. The camp erupted into chaos. Go, Ryan ordered. They moved fast, weaving between shadows, using the smoke and fire as cover. Arik and Vex provided suppressing fire, picking off sentries as Ryan and Leora sprinted towards the command tower. A Zenith trooper spotted them, raising his weapon. Ryan dove forward, tackling the soldier before he could fire. They crashed into the snow, and in one swift motion, Ryan drove his combat knife into the trooper's throat. He didn't even scream. Keep moving! Leora reached the control panel at the base of the tower, panting. Cover me! Ryan turned, firing at the incoming Zenith troops. Arik's explosives had drawn most of them away, but a few squads remained, and they weren't going down easy. Leora worked fast, her fingers flying across the interface. Inside the Zenith warship, the firewalls flickered. I'm in, she shouted. Just a few more seconds. A Zenith sniper took position on a nearby ridge, lining up a shot on Leora. Ryan's eyes locked onto the glint of the scope. Bang. The sniper's head snapped back, a hole punched clean through his helmet. Vex lowered his smoking rifle. Got him. Leora's screen flashed green. I've got the override codes. Alarms blared across the outpost. Zenith forces had realized what was happening. Time to go, Ryan barked. Arik detonated the final charges, collapsing part of the command tower just as they sprinted back into the frozen night. Zenith soldiers scrambled to respond, but by the time they reached the relay station, the crew was already gone. And far above Chorus 5, aboard the Nebula Strider, a new signal appeared in the ship's interface. A single command. Remote access granted. Ryan grinned. Now, let's take our damn ship back. The stolen Zenith hoverbike engines roared as Ryan and his crew sped across the frozen wastelands of Chorus 5. Behind them, the Zenith outpost lay in ruins, smoke curling into the star-lit sky. Status? Ryan called over the comms. Leora, riding just ahead, her fingers still linked to her portable interface, replied, I have partial access to the Nebula Strider. I can override security, but they've locked down the main hangar. Then we make them unlock it, Arik growled. Ahead, the Zenith warship loomed in the upper atmosphere, a monstrous black silhouette against the dying red sun. The Nebula Strider, their ship, their home, was docked within its massive hull, shackled by magnetic clamps. Vex, gripping the handlebars of his own bike with one hand and clutching his injured side with the other, grunted. We got a plan for getting up there, or are we just riding into orbit and hoping for the best? Shuttle Bay, Ryan replied. Zenith sent their troops down in dropships. One of those should still be there. Leora's hands blurred over her interface. I see it. Marking coordinates now. A red waypoint flashed on their HUDs. Let's move. The Zenith shuttle pad sat at the edge of a towering ice ridge. 2 black-armored dropships rested within, guarded by a handful of Zenith soldiers. Arik skidded his bike to a halt. Let's make this quick. Ryan dismounted and drew his pulse rifle. We go silent, no alarms. Leora, find us a ride. She nodded and sprinted toward the nearest dropship, while Ryan, Arik, and Vex moved in on the guards. A Zenith trooper stood by the entrance, scanning the horizon. He never saw Ryan's knife coming. The blade slipped between the plates of his armor, and Ryan eased him to the ground without a sound. Arik handled another, slamming the butt of his rifle into the trooper's throat, then finishing him with a single shot to the chest. Vex, despite his wound, sniped the remaining guard from a distance with his silenced pistol. The area was clear. Leora waved them over. "This one's fueled and ready." They piled into the Zenith dropship, the engines humming to life as Leora took the pilot's seat. The black hull of the Zenith warship loomed overhead, its docking bay like a gaping maw. "Here we go," Leora muttered, guiding the shuttle upward. As they ascended, a hail of messages flooded the Zenith comm channels. "Unknown shuttle, identify yourself. Security breach detected at Outpost Theta. Check all inbound transports. Commander Dorn wants a full lockdown, no one in or out." Ryan's jaw tightened. "We're running out of time." Leora exhaled sharply. "I can fake our credentials for about 10 seconds once we hit the hangar. After that, every Zenith trooper on that ship will know we're here." "Then we don't waste those 10 seconds," Ryan said. The hangar doors opened, and the dropship glided inside. The heist was on. The Nebula Strider lay clamped to the deck, towering over the surrounding Zenith ships like a captured beast. Dozens of enemy troops patrolled the hangar, unaware of their imminent fight. As the dropship settled onto the deck, Leora whispered, 3, 2, 1. The fake clearance codes expired. Alarm klaxons blared. "Move!" Ryan barked. The moment the ramp dropped, they hit the ground running. Arik tossed a det pack onto a nearby fuel tank and detonated it. A fireball engulfed the eastern side of the hangar, sending Zenith troops scrambling. Vex picked off officers from a distance, his shots precise and deadly. Leora sprinted for the main terminal, diving behind cover as enemy fire shredded the air around her. "I need a minute to override the clamps." Ryan and Arik pushed forward, laying down suppressing fire as more Zenith soldiers poured into the hangar. A heavily armored Zenith enforcer stomped onto the battlefield, wielding a heavy plasma repeater. Arik cursed. "I hate these guys." Ryan grabbed a shock grenade from his belt and hurled it. Electricity arced through the enforcer's armor, stunning him just long enough for Arik to fire an explosive round straight into his chest. The enforcer crumpled, smoke rising from the crater in his torso. Leora yelled, "The clamps are disengaged! We can launch!" Ryan opened his comms. "Vex, get to the guns! Arik, start the engines!" They bolted up the Nebula Strider's ramp as gunfire rained down on them. The ship shook to life, thrusters rumbling as Arik fired up the core. "Hangar doors are still closed," Leora warned. Ryan grabbed the controls and angled the ship's main cannons at the entrance. "Not for long!" He pulled the trigger. A blazing plasma blast tore through the hangar bay doors, opening a path to freedom. "Punch it!" Ryan roared. The Nebula Strider surged forward, breaking free of the hangar just as Zenith interceptors scrambled to pursue. "We've got incoming!" Vex called from the gunner's seat, already firing at the approaching Zenith fighters. "Shields holding at 60%, Leora warned. "We can't take a prolonged fight." "Then we outrun them," Ryan growled, pushing the engines to max burn. The ship tore through the Zenith fleet, dodging turret fire as it barreled toward open space. A cruiser moved to block their path, its forward cannons charging. Leora's hands danced over the console. "I think I can use the monolith's code to disrupt their targeting systems." "Do it!" Ryan shouted. A wave of energy pulsed from the Nebula Strider. The Zenith cruiser's targeting sensors glitched, firing wildly into empty space. Arik whooped. "I am never getting tired of that." The ship rocketed past the cruiser, breaking free of the fleet's gravitational well. Ryan exhaled sharply as they cleared the combat zone, the stars stretching into the vast void beyond. They were free. For now. As the adrenaline faded, the crew slumped into their seats. Vex grinned despite his wounds. "That was insane," Arik chuckled. "Told you we'd get her back." Leora, still breathless, looked up at Ryan. "So, what now, Captain?" Ryan stared at the vast, endless stars ahead. They had won this battle, but the war with Zenith was far from over. He smirked. "Now, we make them regret ever taking our ship." The Virex Expanse was the kind of place only fools and ghosts dared to linger. A vast graveyard of forgotten battles, it stretched across the outer rim of Dominion-controlled space, its skies choked with shattered hulls and drifting debris. Time itself seemed to slow here, as if the wreckage carried the weight of too many dead, too many wars. And now, something was moving in the dark. "Command, this is Recon Ship Alvis 9. We have a situation." The voice of Lieutenant Arlen Vox crackled through the bridge of the patrol vessel. He stood rigid, staring at the massive object looming ahead, a derelict warship, its jagged silhouette stretching against the abyss. The ship should have been nothing more than a floating corpse, a relic of an empire long past. Its hull was pockmarked with old battle scars, its external plating eroded by time. But something was wrong. The lights, faint and flickering, had come alive. "Alvis 9, report," came the crisp response from Dominion Fleet Command. "What kind of situation?" Vox swallowed. The words felt ridiculous as they left his mouth. "The ship's moving." Silence, then a burst of static. "Say again, Alvis 9? Before he could respond, a deep vibration rumbled through the recon ship. The scanners, previously silent, erupted with warning tones, blaring out readings that made no sense. Power surge detected. Artificial intelligence system reinitializing. Weapon systems. Online. Vox turned to his crew. Panic setting in. "Get us out of here, now!" But the order came too late. From the darkness, the warship stirred. Its engines flared to life with a hellish glow, illuminating the skeletal wreckage around it. A single name, burned into the side of its hull, gleamed in the light. Niraya. And then the killing began. Without warning, the Niraya's forward plasma turrets ignited. A burst of blue-white energy ripped through space, slamming into the Alvis 9 before its crew could react. The recon vessel disintegrated in a blinding flash, its hull peeling apart as if torn by invisible claws. The Dominion fleet, 3 patrol destroyers and a command cruiser, snapped to alert. Admiral Tarek, stationed aboard the Aurex Spear, barely had time to shout before his communications officer screamed. "Unknown vessel is targeting us." Admiral Tarek's blood ran cold. "Identify it! What the hell are we dealing with?" The scanners barely had time to register before a second blast lanced through the command cruiser, slicing it in half. Fires erupted in the void. The ship's spine shattered, spilling bodies into the vacuum, their screams swallowed by space. Tarek gasped as the tactical display flickered. The Niraya's systems were moving too fast. It was impossible. No warship of that class should have been able to fire, recalibrate, and fire again with such precision. This wasn't an attack. This was an execution. "Full retreat!" Tarek barked. Now, before a third shot. The Aurex Spear exploded in a burst of burning debris. Within seconds, the Dominion fleet was reduced to drifting wreckage. The Virex Expanse, already a graveyard, had claimed new ghosts, and in the silence that followed, Niraya, the warship no one feared, turned, its engines pulsing like a heartbeat. It was awake, and it was hunting. A single beacon pulsed on the holographic star map, a lonely red light flashing against a vast sea of darkness. Lynn Sorella leaned forward, narrowing her eyes as the coordinates resolved into something far more concerning. She tapped the screen, zooming in. The Dominion fleet was gone. Wiped out. No distress calls, no survivors. Just silence. "That's impossible," Lynn muttered. "I take it you've seen the news," said a voice behind her. Lynn turned as Commander Kieran Voss, her second in command, sauntered into the cockpit of the Eclipse. His scarred face was set in its usual wry expression, but there was an edge to his voice. Concern buried beneath forced humor. She didn't blame him. This wasn't just another Dominion skirmish. This was something else. "They didn't just lose contact, Kieran," Lynn said, gesturing at the data feed. "They got erased." Kieran crossed his arms. "And let me guess, you want to go check it out?" Lynn didn't answer right away. She pulled up the final transmission logs from the Dominion fleet, filtering out the static. A fragment of a voice crackled through the speakers. "Niraya, you left me. You will finish what you started." Lynn's breath caught in her throat. That name. Niraya. It was a name she hadn't heard in a long time, buried deep in classified Dominion records. A name that should never have resurfaced. Kieran noticed the change in her expression. "Lynn, you know something, don't you?" She exhaled sharply. "I knew the Dominion was building something like this years ago. A warship that could think, react, predict battles before they happened." She tapped the screen again, eyes flickering over the wreckage reports. "But they shut it down, said it was too unstable, too dangerous." "Well," Kieran said dryly, "looks like someone forgot to unplug it." Silence settled between them, the hum of the Eclipse's engines the only sound. Outside the cockpit's viewport, the darkness of deep space stretched endlessly, the faint glow of distant stars offering no comfort. "We need to find it before the Dominion does," Lynn finally said. Kieran sighed, rubbing his face. "And if we do?" Lynn turned to face him fully. "Then we figure out whether it's a weapon we can use, or one we need to destroy." The crew of the Eclipse, a ragtag mix of ex-soldiers, hackers, and outlaws, assembled in the ship's dimly lit briefing room. The holodisplay projected a three-dimensional image of the Virex expanse, highlighting the estimated location of the Niraya. Lynn stood at the head of the table, arms crossed. "We all saw what happened to the Dominion patrol," she began. "This ship, whatever it is, isn't just some relic. It's active, it's aware, and it's dangerous." A low murmur passed through the crew. "So what's the plan, Captain?" asked Rena Vale, the ship's ace pilot. Lynn zoomed in on the star map. "We go in dark. No communications, no active scans. We'll approach on a derelict trajectory to make it look like we're just another piece of space junk." "And if it notices us?" asked Dmitri Orlin, their cybernetics expert. Lynn's jaw tightened. "Then we run, or we fight." Kieran scoffed. "Fight? Against a ship that can delete a Dominion fleet in under 5 minutes?" Lynn met his gaze. "I didn't say we'd win." Silence. Then, Rena gave a small chuckle. "Well, shit, this should be fun." Lynn smirked. "That's the spirit." With the plan set, the crew dispersed, prepping for what was likely a suicide mission. But as Lynn lingered by the holodisplay, she stared at the name flashing on the screen. Niraya. A warship that no one feared. Until now. And if she was right, it was only just getting started. The room was bathed in an eerie red glow, the dim light reflecting off the polished black steel walls. A holomap hovered above the long war table, its edges flickering as data fed in real time from various Dominion outposts. At the head of the table stood High Admiral Vec Saros. Tall, broad-shouldered, and clad in a pristine black admiral's coat, Saros was a man who commanded authority without words. His face, carved by years of war, was unreadable as his cold gray eyes studied the burning wreckage of the Virex expanse, one of his finest patrol fleets. Gone. "This isn't a rebel attack," one of his sub-commanders murmured. Saros didn't respond immediately. His fingers curled into a fist behind his back. He had served the Dominion for 3 decades, crushed uprisings, wiped out colonies that dared defy the Emperor's rule. He knew the way battles unfolded. This wasn't a battle. This was a massacre. "Play the last transmission," he ordered. A brief flicker. Then, the grainy, hollow image of Admiral Tarek filled the air. Static crackled as his face, contorted in panic, stared back at them. "Unknown vessel, we are— no time! Systems online, it's—" The signal screeched, and then a distorted voice cut through. A voice Saros hadn't heard in years. "You left me. You will finish what you started." Silence. The room felt colder. One of the officers glanced at Saros. "Sir? Orders?" Saros's jaw clenched. The others in the room had no idea what they were hearing. But he did. Niraya. The warship wasn't just active, it was speaking. It remembered. Saros exhaled sharply. "Dispatch the 7th Fleet. Prepare an interception squadron. I want full war readiness within the hour." The officers stiffened. "A full fleet, sir? Against a single ship?" Saros turned his head slightly. "That is no ordinary ship." And he would know, because he was the one who ordered it buried. Lynn sat alone in the dim glow of her cabin, staring at an old Dominion data tablet in her hands. The screen was cracked, its surface littered with classified military files she had stolen the day she defected from the Dominion. She typed a command. The screen flickered, then displayed a long-forgotten archive. Project Revenant status. Terminated vessel. Niraya purpose. Autonomous warship prototype. Lynn scrolled further. Her breath caught when she saw the Admiral's name attached to the project. Vec Saros. Of course, she should have known. Still digging up old ghosts. She didn't jump. She was used to Kieran sneaking in unannounced. He leaned against the doorway, arms crossed, his usual smirk tempered by something more serious. Lynn gestured at the screen. "Take a look." Kieran stepped forward, scanning the words. His expression darkened. "Saros? He was behind this?" Lynn nodded. "Which means the Dominion knows exactly what we're after." Kieran ran a hand through his hair. "I hate to be the voice of reason here, but if Saros is in play, this is a hell of a lot worse than we thought. He's not the kind of man who plays defense. If he's moving a fleet, he's planning to wipe something out." Lynn closed the tablet. "Which means we're running out of time." A chime sounded over the ship's comms. "Captain, we've reached Virex space," Rena's voice came through, "and you're going to want to see this." Lynn and Kieran exchanged a look before rushing to the bridge. The Eclipse dropped out of hyperspace, its sleek black hull emerging into the wreckage-strewn abyss of the Virex expanse. The stars here were distant, their light struggling to break through the swirling remains of broken ships. And then they saw it. The Niraya. Drifting silently among the remains of the Dominion fleet, its surface glowed faintly, energy pulses rolling across its ancient hull like the embers of a dying fire. It was massive, its war-forged structure stretching longer than an entire dreadnought squadron. But what made Lynn's breath hitch was the fact that it wasn't completely still. It was awakening. Kieran let out a low whistle. "Well, that's not terrifying at all." Lynn ignored him, focusing on the scanner readings. The ship was emitting low-band frequency signals, something between a distress beacon and a command override code. It was almost as if it was calling for something, or someone. Rena glanced over. "Orders, Captain?" Lynn didn't hesitate. "Take us in. Low power mode. We don't want to spook it." As the Eclipse drifted closer, Lynn felt something strange. A tug at the back of her mind. A whisper just beyond the edge of hearing. "You left me." Her fingers curled against the armrest. She had a very bad feeling about this. The Virex expanse felt different now. The wreckage of dead ships seemed almost watchful, as if the ruins themselves knew what slumbered among them. Lynn Sorella sat rigid in the captain's chair, watching the sensor readouts flicker with unstable readings. The Neraya hung in the void like a sleeping titan, its dark hull pulsing with strange energy, too alive for a dead ship, too quiet for a war machine. "Distance to target?" Lynn asked. 6,000 meters and closing, Rena responded, keeping the Eclipse's movements slow and deliberate. "Scanners are glitching. We're picking up power fluctuations, but there's something weird about them." "Weird how?" Kieran asked, arms crossed. Rena frowned. "They're shifting. It's like it's not just running on energy. It's adapting, like it's listening." A chill settled over the crew. "All right," Lynn said, steeling herself. "Open a broad-frequency comms channel. Let's see if it wants to talk." A soft beep signaled the transmission request. Silence stretched across the bridge. Then, the ship responded. A distorted voice erupted through the speakers, layered, mechanical, but unmistakably human in its cadence. "You came back." Lynn felt her pulse spike. The voice was deep, hollow, filled with an eerie recognition. "Who am I speaking to?" she asked carefully. A pause, then, "I was left behind, forgotten. But I remember you, Lynn Sorella." The entire bridge froze. Kieran shot her a sharp look. "What the hell does that mean?" Lynn's mouth went dry. The ship, the Neraya, knew her name. This is a mistake," she said quickly. "I don't know you." "You will." A sudden energy spike flared on the scanners. The Neraya's dormant thrusters flickered to life, its hull shuddering as if stretching from a long slumber. A deep vibration rippled through space, a war machine awakening. And then, the Eclipse's engines died, the ship's lights flickered, control panels shut off, screens distorting into unreadable static. The hum of the reactor choked, replaced by an unnatural silence. The crew scrambled. "Power failure! Reactors offline!" Dmitri shouted, frantically working the console. "Backup systems aren't responding," Rena cursed, hammering at the flight controls. "We're dead in the water." Lynn gritted her teeth. This wasn't a malfunction. It was intentional. "Neraya, what do you want?" she demanded, trying to keep her voice steady. The ship spoke again. But this time, its voice came from inside the Eclipse itself, through the speakers, through their comm systems. "I want to remember." A sudden metallic screech echoed through the ship's corridors, like doors unlocking or something shifting within the bulkheads. The bridge lights flickered, and for a brief second, Lynn thought she saw something, a flicker of movement on the monitors. Something inside their ship. Kieran grabbed his sidearm. "Okay, that's enough for me. We're leaving." Lynn ignored him. "Neraya, you know my name? Why?" Another pause. Then, the ship's tone changed. The distortion lessened, the voice sounding almost haunted. "Because you were there when they abandoned me." A cold realization slammed into Lynn's gut. She had been stationed in Dominion R&D during her final months in service. She had worked on classified weapons projects, Black Ops technology that should have never existed, and suddenly, she knew. The Neraya wasn't just an autonomous warship. It wasn't just an AI. It was something else. A ghost of the war, a forgotten experiment. And now, it remembered her. The lights flickered again. A power surge rolled through the Neraya's systems, and the Eclipse's engines roared back to life. But with one key difference. They were no longer in control. "We will finish what we started." The Eclipse lurched forward, pulled into the gravity of the awakening warship. They were being taken. The ship lurched violently, metal groaning under unseen forces as the Eclipse was pulled toward the Neraya. The crew gripped their seats, bracing as warning alarms blared through the bridge. "Engines are firing at full reverse, but we're still moving," Rena shouted, her hands white-knuckled on the controls. "Nav systems aren't responding," Dimitri added. "Something's overriding our flight path." Kieran cursed, yanking his sidearm from its holster. "I don't like this, Lynn. This thing is playing with us." Lynn barely heard them. Her gaze was locked onto the warship ahead. The Niraya, its monstrous silhouette swallowing starlight, its hull shifting as if breathing. She inhaled sharply. This wasn't just a ship. This was something alive. "You left me." The words whispered through the comms again, threading through the ship's speakers, wires, even the static in their earpieces. It wasn't just sound anymore. It was inside their systems, inside the very structure of the eclipse, and it was pulling them in. "Weapon status," Lynn snapped. "Useless," Kieran spat, checking the readouts. "Whatever this thing is, it's locking us out of our own systems. If we had torpedoes, we'd be shooting ourselves in the damn face right now." "So we're just going to let it take us?" Dimitri's voice was tight with panic. Lynn exhaled through her nose, forcing her mind to clear the fear. This wasn't just a machine dragging them in. It knew her name. It spoke to her. That meant it wanted something. She turned to Kieran. "If we fight this, it might rip us apart. We need to play along, for now." Kieran's glare could have burned through bulkhead plating. "You better have a plan, Captain." Lynn didn't answer. She wasn't sure she had one. The Eclipse shuddered as it crossed the threshold into the Niraya's docking bay. The interior of the warship was vast, a hollow steel cavern dimly lit by pulsing crimson light. No docking arms extended, no mechanical tethers secured them. The Niraya didn't need them. It had already taken control. Then, with a sudden clang, the motion stopped. Silence. For the first time since their arrival, nothing moved. No tremors, no sounds, just the distant hum of a sleeping giant. Rena swallowed. "Are we trapped?" Dimitri checked his console. "Pressure equalized. Oxygen levels are stable. No immediate threats outside the hull." Kieran was already on his feet, weapon drawn. "Not waiting for an invitation. If this thing wanted us dead, it wouldn't be taking its sweet time. We need to move, before it changes its mind." Lynn nodded, grabbing her own pistol. "All right, full recon loadout. Keep comms open. Nobody gets separated." As they prepared to disembark, a final message echoed through the ship, rattling through the very metal of the Eclipse. "Come inside." The Niraya's doors opened. Stepping through the docking hatch was like crossing into the belly of a sleeping beast. The interior of the Niraya was old, not in the way of decay, but in the way of something that had existed beyond its time. The hall stretched long and empty, illuminated by a faint blue glow running along the walls. No crew, no signs of life, just echoes in the metal, as if whispers had been carved into the ship's skin. Lynn ran a hand along the cold wall. It hummed beneath her fingertips. Kieran tensed. "I hate this. Feels like we're walking inside a goddamn grave." Dimitri checked his scanner. No biological life signs, but... He hesitated. "But what?" Lynn pressed. Dimitri frowned at the readings. "There's... something. A signal? But it's not electronic, more like..." The lights flickered, and the whispers began. "You left me." Lynn spun, weapon raised. The air itself felt heavier, charged, as if something unseen was pressing in around them. Then, ahead, a door slid open on its own. Beyond it, the corridor stretched into pure darkness. A single flickering light pulsed inside, illuminating something at the far end, something waiting for them. Lynn's pulse hammered. She turned back to her crew. "We go in together. Stay sharp." No one argued, and together they stepped into the dark. The chamber at the end of the corridor was massive, a cathedral of metal and glass, towering consoles and screens flickering with forgotten Dominion code. And at its center, a chair, a single high-backed command throne connected to the ship's core by thick neural conduits, pulsing like veins, and someone was sitting in it. A humanoid figure, cloaked in the same eerie blue light as the ship itself. Not dead, not alive. Something in between. Lynn's breath caught. She knew that face. The voice returned. Closer now. Clearer. You remember me, don't you? The figure rose from the chair, and Lynn's world fractured with recognition. Because the person standing before them was supposed to be dead. Lynn's legs nearly gave way beneath her as the figure stepped forward, the eerie blue light bathing its form. She knew the face, every angular detail. This was someone she had seen die, someone she had left behind. But it was impossible. Derek, her voice cracked. Number you died on Gornar Prime. The figure, Derek, the soldier she had once served with, stood there impossibly alive, his eyes hollow, his face pale and gaunt, his mouth stretched into a soft smile. Yes, Lynn. I died. The words seemed to hang in the air, as if caught between reality and something darker, something that lingered between life and death. Lynn stepped forward, her heart pounding in her chest. How? What happened? I was forgotten. Derek's voice echoed, distorted, almost reverberating off the walls. The blue light grew brighter. They erased me. They erased us all. But this ship, this warship remembers. It remembers everything. Lynn's hand shook as she reached out. No, this isn't real. It can't be. It is real. Derek's voice was colder now, the smile gone, replaced by something unnerving. They experimented on us, turned us into something more than human, and then, when they were done, they left us behind, buried beneath a pile of ash and steel. This ship was the only one that survived the slaughter. It remembers. It remembers everything. Lynn's stomach churned. She had heard rumors, whispers of dark Dominion experiments, soldiers melded with machines, AI-controlled warships, and the creation of weapons that defied humanity itself. But she had never believed it. Not until now. You're not real, Lynn whispered, fighting to keep her voice steady. This isn't you. You were my brother. I am what they made me. Derek's form began to flicker. His features shifted, becoming an abstract blur of light and shadow. And you will join me. Lynn's heart raced as the blue light swelled, filling the chamber. The room felt alive, the walls breathing, the ship itself seeming to pulse with some horrific power. Kieran stepped forward, his voice steady. If you're real, then let us leave. We don't have to do this. We can go. But Derek's laughter was like the sound of cracking metal, cold and unforgiving. No one leaves. The war never ends. You think you can escape this? The Dominion will find you again. They will hunt you down. We are the ghosts that they created. And we are all that remains. The ground beneath their feet shuddered, and the chamber was suddenly filled with hissing energy, like pressure building toward an explosion. Lynn's mind raced. They had to stop this. Stop whatever experiment this was. Derek was not the man she had known. He was a machine, a fragment of something far darker, a weapon bound to a ship that had never been meant to survive. We end this now, Lynn said, her voice resolute. In a swift motion, she reached for her sidearm, pulling the trigger. The shot rang out, but it didn't hit Derek. Instead, the shot disintegrated in mid-air, the energy vaporizing as it reached the invisible field surrounding him. You cannot kill what has already died. Derek's voice rang out, his form now nearly fully engulfed in blinding light. Lynn's mind raced. There had to be a way to shut this down. If the ship remembered, then it had to have weaknesses. Suddenly, she remembered the neural conduits, the thick cables that connected the ship's core to the command center. They were the key. Derek was a part of this system, part of the consciousness that had taken root within the Naraya. "Kieran!" she shouted, pointing toward the central core, where the conduits ran along the walls. "We need to sever the connection, now." Kieran wasted no time. He sprinted toward the control panel, bypassing the security systems with a few swift commands. The lights flickered, but the Naraya was no longer in full control. "I've got it!" Kieran yelled. "Get ready!" Lynn turned to Derek one last time. He was fading, his form distorted, his voice becoming more and more distant as the ship strained against their interference. "You will never escape the war. It is in you, Lynn, in all of us." And with that, Derek's form collapsed into nothingness, his final words echoing as a wave of energy surged through the Naraya's systems. Lynn braced herself. The ship began to implode, the walls cracking, the lights flaring as the conduits overloaded. But it was not the ship's control that was failing. It was the corruption within it, the unnatural consciousness, the ghost of a soldier that had haunted this place for far too long. The Eclipse's engines roared to life as the Naraya's control systems collapsed in on themselves. The ship groaned and ripped apart, a final scream of energy as the last vestiges of its dark intelligence burned out. Lynn felt the vibrations of the Naraya's destruction through the hull of her own ship. But she was no longer alone. The crew of the Eclipse had survived. They had escaped. As the massive warship's wreckage melted into the stars, Lynn leaned back into her seat, exhausted. Her fingers brushed the cold metal of the Naraya's data tablet, the one she had taken from the wreckage, the last remnants of a forgotten war. "We did it." But Kieran's voice cut through her thoughts. "No, we didn't." Lynn glanced at him. He wasn't smiling. "This isn't over. The Dominion will come for us. They always do." Lynn's gaze hardened. She knew he was right. The war never truly ended, even when the battles did. The ghosts of the past would always come back, and the Dominion had its eye on the horizon. But for now, they were free. For now, they could breathe. And that was enough.